It's time for Watts on Wealth Radio with Barry Watts and your host, Ralph Hipp.
Hey, is 2024 your year to retire? Today with Barry Watts, we have your retirement forecast for 2024 so you can understand the key factors you want to look over before you enter this next phase of your life. Thanks for joining us for this weekend's Watts on Wealth program. Not only getting started in 2024, but getting started on our program. A quick reminder, Barry's number all around the Ozarks is 417-200-3500. Hello, Barry, and how are things going so far in 2024?
Brrr, Ralph, it's cold.
Very.
In the Ozarks.
Very.
Everybody's humped up.
I've always heard, Barry, like further north around Kansas City, they get a lot of snow, and around the foothills, we get a lot of ice around Springfield. Have you had that be your experience? It's mostly icy?
Not this year so far, and we'll see what today works out to be like. But it's just really cold. And that's got everybody kind of humped up and feeling like they ought to be in Florida, at least everybody who thinks like I do.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's some other things that are heating up a little bit. It's been 2023 that just closed out was, of course, a really nice year in the markets for investors. And 2024 so far has been a little bit bumpy, but we're actually up about 1% on the year. So, you know, if the rest of the year worked out like the past few days just starting this year have, we'd be in double-digit performance numbers again for this year, somewhere around 20%. So now nobody knows what's going to happen. I certainly don't know what's going to happen. That's not a prediction. It's just interesting to note that since 1928, about a third of the time when the market has returned 10% or more, well, in the following year, it has also produced a double-digit return. That's according to chartered financial analyst Ben Carlson. So hopefully old Ben is right and the statistics are right, and we can take last year's great double-digit number and count on it helping us to produce another double-digit number in 2024. That would be a great year for everybody who's got money in investments. But you know, Ralph, that's not what's really the most important. What's really important is that you have the amount that you need in order to satisfy your retirement needs. So you see, the market may do, let's just say the market did 20% next year. Well, the question is, do you need to do 20%? I know you want to do what the market does as long as it's positive. Well, if you're going to do what the market does when it's positive, you've got to also be willing to do what the market does when it's negative. Mm-hmm. And so I think the way retirees should look at this is, you know, you need to figure out what you need to hit your objective. And if 4% or 5% will hit your objectives, and by the way, that's what we do at WealthCare. We don't focus on the market. We focus on your retirement goals. And whatever it takes to hit your objective is what we're going to focus on rather than focusing on market performance, because it's all about you being able to retire and stay retired. Who cares what the markets do?
That's right. It's just another factor to consider there. Well, Barry, the financial analysts say the persistent inflation, the latest reports are at the start of the year, it's inflation ticking up just a little bit, and the possibility of living a long time in retirement are two of the big factors we consider in retiring in 2024. How do you talk to people around the Ozarks about those challenges, the inflation, and are we really living longer? You know, we had maybe the life expectancy is also ticking down a little bit from COVID, but that's what we hear on the political debates, if you can go by that. But anyway, but inflation and longevity. And what are your thoughts about that? What do you tell people around Springfield?
I think it's interesting. A lot of times I run into people who want to argue about whether or not they'll live to be 100.
Really?
Why would you want to argue with that? I understand that you think you might not live that long, but what if you do? So we need to plan on the what if you do. And then if you don't, well, you'll just have some extra money left and that will be okay. So the way we do that is we always assume that everybody's going to live to be 100 years old. And we do our planning. We part of our 6 steps to retirement confidence. The first step is income to age 100. We do our planning to age 100, except for one guy who recently came in, and he was adamant. He did not want to be planned to age 100. He didn't want to be planned one day longer than 90. Okay, so we planned him to 90 because we're trying to be amenable to his desires. We planned him to 90, and guess when he ran out of money? Age 84.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
He was falling short. So the point is we want to plan you for what we believe will be your lifespan plus a little bit so we don't run out of money. And you have to be aware as you do this, inflation is always going to be present. Now, you don't need to worry about thinking about inflation and saying, well, how much am I going to need to increase my numbers? We build that into all of our planning. So we take care of that math for you. And when talking about inflation, it reminds me of a little riff that I have done a few times about why Springfield's most prominent and richest citizen could go broke. That's our friend Johnny Morris, who owns Bass Pro Shops, who, by the way, is a great gift to the Ozarks. Thank you, Johnny.
He is.
It's nice to have a billionaire who loves you, and he's good to the Ozarks. But here's why I mentioned why Johnny Morris could go broke. I used to say that, at inflation at 7, 8, 9%, that there was nobody in Springfield who can endure that kind of inflation. And I'm going to tell you that our listeners can't endure that. You can't endure that, Ralph. I can't endure that. If we have 7, 8, 9% inflation, it will destroy and break our retirements. So I used to say the only guy in Springfield who could endure it was Johnny Morris. And then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, all the people who go shop at Johnny's store are the people who are going to be wiped out by this higher inflation. So Johnny couldn't endure it either. So the notion of thinking about inflation at these high rates is serious, needs to be dealt with from an economic management perspective. But when we're doing planning for clients, we don't try to plan for 7, 8, 9% inflation, because I can tell you the numbers will blow up on you at those kind of numbers. We try to stay back where the Fed says they're going to manage us, which is in that 2 to 3% range.
Right. Hey, I got to ask you, talking about Johnny Morris, and did you know John Q. Hammond's our other big benefactor? Did you know John Q?
I didn't personally know John Q. I don't personally know Johnny either. I've run into all of them at different places.
I ran into John Q once.
The only conversation I ever had with John Q is at the Hammond Student Center. I used to see him standing in line in the men's room. And so one time I happened to be right behind him in the men's room, and it was a little narrow place, hardly shoulder width, that you could go down this little hall to get in there. And I made some kind of a snarky comment to him about maybe if somebody donated him more money, they could have built a wider hall or something like that. And he kind of turned around and snorted and went on his merry way.
I didn't know if he might have made a note of that. I don't
personally know.
Yeah. Hey, talk about the challenges of having to spend more now as the costs are going up a little bit. So spending more, but also we're trying to save enough to stay ahead of inflation when we retire. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Ralph, if you're already retired, then we're not trying to save enough, because you either have or you haven't. It's already done. Now, if you are in the accumulation years instead of the decumulation years, well, then, yes, inflation and having to save more to accommodate that could be a part of how you have to think. But once you've retired, your numbers are already in, and it's just a matter of how much money you have to spend and whether or not you have to reduce your spending. Now, more importantly than this idea of how do I save enough to deal with inflation, I want to show you, Ralph, and tell you about how you could get extra money in your retirement account without costing you even a little dime. And here's the way that you do that. You can make your IRA contributions on January 1st of 2024. But for 2024, a lot of people won't make their IRA contributions until 2025 in April. Everybody waits till April, it seems like, and they pay their taxes in April, and then their CPA says to them, oh, by the way, you should put this much in your IRA. So they make their IRA contribution and they're done. But did you know that you could have made that IRA contribution 15 months earlier? And if you'd have made that contribution 15 months earlier on January 1st at the beginning of the year you were eligible, instead of April 15th after the year when you were eligible, and you put in your $7,000, or if you're like me and you're old enough, you can put in $8,000 a year because we get a little catch up. Well, it'll be worth over a lifetime about $138,000 additional dollars to you, $138,000 more, if you just make your contribution that 15 months earlier every year, and it won't cost you a thing. It's the same contribution you were going to make anyway. So by putting the money in earlier, you get the power of compounding working for you for 15 months longer on every contribution. And it's worth about $138,000 just to do it early instead of late. So Ralph, that's how you deal with inflation. That's how you save enough to stay ahead. It wasn't a matter of saving more. It was just a matter of being smarter about what you were saving.
Yeah, there you go. So some of the words of wisdom from J. Barry Watts, the main retirement designer with the Wealth Care Corporation you're listening to this weekend. I'm your host, Ralph Hipp, and to reach out to Barry, that number is 417-200-3500, 200-3500. right there in the 417 area code. Barry, how do you talk to people about finding what is that right balance between the growth and the money we want to preserve in retirement, to grow it or to keep it? And how do we calculate that?
Well, one of the things that we do with people is we help them actually see how the different kinds of money work, and about how there's risk money and about how there's safe money. And we ask them, we don't tell them, we ask them, how much do you want in these various categories? And that is driven by their personalities. So some people will say, oh, they're fearful people. I want 100% in safe, nothing but safe. And then there are other people who are big, bold, and brash, and I want 100% in risky because I believe in taking risk and that'll always pay off. Well, here's what I want to say to you. Why would you take more risk than is necessary? Why would you take the risk to hit a 10% or 15% number if 5% is all you had to have? Right. And so what we try to do is help people first figure out how much they have to have. What kind of return do you need? And then we back into an investment profile that's based on the return that you need, rather than just the fact that you're willing to take more risk. And so in general, we're pretty cautious. We try to encourage people to be more cautious, but ultimately we let them tell us how much they want in each of those categories and how much they're willing to put at risk and accept volatility on, and how much they want to have safe so they'll have no risk to it.
Yeah. Hey, Watts on Wealth is the name of our podcast and our broadcast, and you just take the on off to go to the website. That is wattswealth.com, and you'll find a lot of information on there too. And Barry, maybe sometime we can get into texting to find a class, and remind me, we'll have to bring that up in our show sometime. Yeah.
Yes, you can text to find our class. In fact, I'll give you the number you can text.
Well, let's do that right now.
We teach classes regularly here around the Springfield area, and we would be happy to have you participate in one of those if you're interested. All you need to do is just text the word class, and you send that text to 417-882-1726, 417-882-1726. If you'll text the word class, we'll send you out some information on when the next classes begin, and we've got one that's starting here in the next few weeks.
Oh, great. So find out about the schedule and the content and all that good stuff. What is that text number again, Barry?
417-882-1726.
I'm glad to repeat that main phone number to reach out to the Wealth Care Corporation around Springfield is 417-200-3500. Barry, it's already time for one of our fancy, snazzy commercial breaks. We'll take a break and back with more of Barry Watts and Watts on Wealth in a moment.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will your roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a pretty good run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather a financial storm? Now may be a great time to get a second opinion on your retirement plan. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care at 417-200-3500 now. They'll examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care today at 417-200-3500 to get your no-obligation second opinion. Don't let your retirement get caught in the rain. Call 417-200-3500. Investment advisory services are provided by Wealth Care Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of Wealth Care. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
Welcome back in. The show is Watts on Wealth, and along with J. Barry Watts, the main retirement designer for the Wealth Care Corporation, I'm your host, Ralph Hipp. Barry, the latest reports out of Social Security, we're hearing from them so far this year. The benefits have gone up a little bit. My wife and I noticed, hey, there's a little bit more in there this time. But the trust fund is actually falling short this year if Congress doesn't do anything. And one of the options being thought about is raising that full retirement age. We've discussed it before on the show, and they're talking about it in these political debates. What's your thought on raising retirement age? Are you hearing anything about that?
Well, I don't think that should catch anybody by surprise. You should expect that the retirement age will keep on increasing. In fact, they probably ought to have a mechanism, which they don't have, but probably ought to have, where they increase it just a little bit every year or every few years. And let me tell you why. In 1935, when Social Security was first introduced, you could start taking it at age 65. But the average lifespan for men in 1935 was 59. And the average age for women was 63. So the average person didn't live to be old enough to start taking Social Security. Now, in 1961, they changed the rules and they said, well, maybe 65 is not it. You can start taking your Social Security at 62. You just take a lesser amount. Now, in 1961, when you could start taking it at age 62, the average lifespan for a man was 67, a woman was 73. So you got it for, 4 or 5 years, and then you died. But today, the average lifespan is 82. That's just the average. That means half of the people are going to live longer than that. So whether you start taking Social Security at 62 or 65 or 6 or 7, whatever year you happen to take it, half of the people who do that are going to live beyond age 82. And that's why it should come as no surprise when the full retirement age for Social Security is lifted and they say it's going to be later and later and later before you can actually draw your full Social Security. Now, the last time that Congress changed any of this was in 1983, so it's been 40 years. And at that time, the full retirement age was raised from 65 to 67. And in 1983, I was 20 years old. Do you know how concerned I was about that?
Probably a 0.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
Not much.
Because it was way off out there. Well, now it's just kind of around the corner. It won't be very long.
Very
So I've got it a little bit more on my mind. But in 83, they raised it to age 67 for anybody who had been born 1960 or later. Now, the current proposal that's being bandied about, and it's a lot of the Republicans are behind this proposal and pushing it forward, it would raise the full retirement age from 67 to 69. And it would be phased in over 8 years starting in 2026. But that's for people who are turning 62 in 2033 or later. So if you're turning 62 before 2033, as I am, and as Ralph already has, well, then that's not going to be a concern for us. So if you're a little younger in our listening demographic and you don't turn 62 till 2033 or later, then your full retirement age could be bumped out another couple of years. But it shouldn't really surprise you that that occurs.
And for those youngins, we're glad you're listening today. It's good to plan ahead and know all this stuff. And why learn it when you're 62? Learn it now from Barry Watts. That number again is 417-200-3500 for the Wealth Care Corporation right there at Highway 65 and Battlefield Road. And you said you're not far from Glendale High School, Barry?
We're just to the, is this south or north? This is south. We're just to the south of Glendale High School. We're about 50% of the distance from Battlefield Road to Glendale High School. Yeah. Right there in the curve in the road is where our office is located.
And they're going, oh, I know right where that is. Well, continuing our chat here with J. Barry Watts, one other big factor we shouldn't overlook. Hey, Barry, did you know it's an election year? There's a lot up in the air right now. This election cycle, we're really into the meat of the matter. This process is underway. How do you talk to people around the Ozarks who are worried about the uncertainty? Are they going, oh, politics, I tune it out, or they're tuning it in and they're really listening carefully to what all these candidates are saying so far, especially about Social Security and our retirement?
Well, I'm interested in politics very much, and I do pay attention, but I also tune it out very quickly because it's mostly just a bunch of gibberish. So, Ralph, here's the way I look at all of this uncertainty. And the election is a part of the uncertainty. Are Republicans going to be in control or are Democrats going to be in control? And most of Southwest Missouri tends to vote Republican. It's pretty strong red territory. So their big concern is that we're going to have more of this Joe Biden stuff. And honestly, that's one of my concerns, too. But, I have no control except when I go to the ballot box and pull the lever or punch the button, as it happens to be, fill in the little circles. So here's what I teach people. I want you to draw 2 circles up in the air. Just hold your hands up like you were being arrested or something. Hold your hands up, and I want you to draw 2 circles, one with your left hand, one with your right hand.
Okay.
And now, if you would, Ralph, I'd like you to take those circles, and I want you to just move them together so they overlap a little bit. All right. Now, on one of those circles, I want you to write the word control. And on the other circle, I want you to write the word matter. So control and matter, and they're overlapping just a little bit. So the first question is, can we control it? Well, if the answer is yes, then maybe we should do something about it. If the answer is no, then it's irrelevant. We shouldn't even consult it. Doesn't matter. Secondly, the second circle is, does it matter? Is it important? Yes or no? Well, if it is, and we can control it, then it's something we should focus on. But if it matters and we can't control it, or if we can control it but it doesn't matter, then it's not something we should spend any energy on.
Mm-hmm.
The only things that we should focus on are the things that we can control and the things that matter. The two of those together are places where we should invest our energy in trying to influence our future. And so we just try to get people back, talk them off the ledge, get them back down to reality, and talk about this. Can we control it? Does it matter? Let's focus on those things.
Barry, I don't know how you were. You're so good with numbers, but how are we at math? And I don't remember much about math class, but I do remember those Venn diagrams. Mm-hmm. Venn diagrams when you had the two circles and you put them together. So that's what you're talking about, and that focus on that overlap there?
That's exactly right.
On that Venn diagram, something you may recall from your high school math class. Talking about numbers, looming ahead after the election, so now less than 2 years from now, we have those January 1, 2026 tax law changes. And Barry, I'd sure love to get your thoughts on what we ought to be doing right now to get ready for that. Any special 2024 strategies on the 2026 changes you'd like to suggest?
Well, yes, Ralph, there are. There are three things that I think is really important that you do. Number one, you need to strategically integrate Roth into your investment strategy. That's the first thing you need to do. Now, the second thing you need to do is you need to integrate Roth strategically. And the third thing you need to do is Roth. So here's the point, Ralph. Taxes are going higher. And if taxes are going to be higher in the future, I had a beautiful young couple in just this week who are in their 40s, and they're doing good, and they want to know, can I help them? And I started talking to them about the importance of using Roth, and they said, well, our CPA told us to quit using our Roths. He told us that we didn't need to do that. Just put the money over in the taxable IRA because we've been in a lower tax bracket later. And,
What did you say to that?
Well, I sighed deeply and tried to decide whether or not I was going to take a big stick to the CPA or a little stick to the CPA. Mm-hmm. Because what I said is, okay, guys, your CPA is wrong. He's absolutely wrong. You're going to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement. And the reason is mathematical. What's going to happen in the United States is tax rates are going to rise into the future starting in 2026 because that's the only way the country can pay its bills. And the only way you can avoid that is by having your money in a Roth IRA, because what comes out of the Roth comes out tax-free. So one of the things I told this young couple is they were talking about their pensions. What are we going to do with our pension? And because they happened to work where they had a pension. And I'm like, well, when the time comes, instead of taking the pension, we're actually going to take the lump sum. We're going to move the lump sum into your IRA, your taxable IRA, which will be a non-taxable event. And then we are going to do conversions on that and integrate that over to your Roth IRA, pay the taxes, get them out of our way, put it in your Roth IRA, so you'll never have to pay taxes on that again. So the answer is avoid tax, avoid tax, avoid tax. And the only way you can avoid tax is pay the tax now that you've already incurred. So you have to get it washed out of your system. That's a little painful. Some people don't want to do that. But it's the only way that you can get yourself anywhere near to the 0% tax bracket. And I was excited for this young couple because they hate taxes and they got it. They were smart. They were good thinkers. And they saw that they were going to be able to retire in 20 more years in the 0% tax bracket.
Okay.
If they would just do some strategic things right now.
Okay. I'm going to tee this ball up in Hammond's Park, Hammond Stadium, talking about John Q. Hammonds again. Tee it up and let you hit it out of the park, Barry. Our basic concepts of income, insurance, tax strategy, healthcare costs, legacy planning, all these pieces. And if people have been working with maybe a different financial professional in those areas, why is it time to start talking with a retirement financial pro like you?
Well, there's a great difference, Ralph, between the accumulation phase, which is when you're still working and saving, and the decumulation or spending phase, which is when you have topped to the hill And now you're coming down the other side beginning to spend money. And a lot of people we work with have done a really good job of saving. And they know they needed to think about taxes and strategies to preserve income and creating a legacy for heirs. But they're not working with advisors who are focused on that specifically. That's the kind of stuff we do for people at the Wealth Care Corporation when we focus on building them retirement income plans. And so all of the different areas can be addressed in one place under one advisor, and we call our process that helps us to do that the 6 steps of retirement confidence. Now, you need to ask yourself, think about this, what's your level of confidence from 1 to 10, with 10 being most confident, 1 being not very confident? What is your level of confidence that you are going to have income all the way to age 100? You're never going to run out of income. Give yourself a rating on there, 1 to 10. What is your level of confidence that you will be paying a lower tax in the future and can get yourself to the 0% tax bracket? Give yourself a rating from 1 to 10, with 10 being, I'm really confident. What is your level of confidence that you can manage your investments in such a way that you protect your principal so it never gets eroded by a bad stock market? Give yourself a rating, 1 to 10. What's your level of confidence about long-term care planning and that you're going to be able to take care of all your long-term care needs? Rate yourself 1 to 10. And then finally, your legacy and estate plan. What's your level of confidence that you have that all in order? Because those 5 steps are the things that we deal with in helping people become more confident. And then on an annual basis, we just keep reviewing those 5 steps and make sure that nothing has changed that we need to adjust along the way. All of that is here under one roof. And so you want all the different accounts and all the different policies you own to work seamlessly together, and that doesn't happen by accident. We make it happen at the Wealth Care Corporation, and that's the kind of service that we provide to our clients.
That's right. So if you're listening, and we're glad you are, said, I got to get with Barry, and get with Barry really soon. That number is 417-200-3500. Barry Watts and the Wealth Care Corporation you're listening to. This is your host, Ralph Hipp. Time for a break and a little bit of the news, and we'll be back with more of our conversation with Barry right after this.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the Wealth Care team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Broadcast and podcast. This is Ralph Hipp along with J. Barry Watts here on your new retirement home, the radio home for the expert retirement planner designer J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Barry, when we come back from the news and get ready for the second half of our show here, we always have what we call our Social Security question of the day. And the question is, I have not filed for Social Security yet. I'm 64 and was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I've been told I have less than 24 months left. Can I get retroactive Social Security benefits? Sorry to hear about that. And what's your answer to this person?
Well, that's a terrible, difficult,
tough situation.
Diagnosis to have, and I'm sad to hear that for you. Now, with regard to the financial end of it and getting retroactive Social Security benefits, the answer is maybe. Here's what you need to do. you should immediately, don't pass go, don't collect $200, immediately apply for those Social Security benefits, disability benefits, I should say. Social Security's got a compassionate allowance program. And if you will apply for the compassionate allowance program and explain your situation, it allows you to get a quicker response from Social Security than you would normally get. And so you want to be sure that when you apply for your Social Security disability, that you ask for the compassionate allowances program. And under that program, you may be able to be paid benefits back to the date of the onset of your disability. So depending on what your physician says about when the disability came upon you, then the date that they assign that, well, then you will be able most likely to get benefits back to the date of the onset of the disability. But don't let your shirt tail touch you. Run right out there and apply for your Social Security disability benefits under the Compassionate Allowances Program immediately.
Very good. Very good. So, Barry, right now, continuing our conversation, I want to talk about how our behavior might have a possible impact on our money over time if we have a lot more than 2 years left. And what can we do to stop acting weird with our money? What do you see as some of the behavioral things to look for?
Well, we don't have enough time on the show to go over all the weird things that we see, Ralph. I'm thinking about a guy who came in just this past week making about $200,000, but explain to me how within 2 years he'll be making $20 million a year.
Okay.
You know, those are the kind of stories that they turn into case studies at the Wharton School of Business. I maybe he will, and I'm for him. I hope that's the case. But I've heard the wind blow before, and I'm inclined to think that that's probably not going to happen in his case. So people have a lot of weird ideas about money, and some of them it's about how rich they're going to get really soon. You know, another place I see people that behave weirdly about money is inherited money. Oh, well, this account came from mom or dad or Uncle Earl or whoever it was, and so I have to keep this money safe. And I know a guy, in fact, who has nothing but CDs in his account because his father made him promise that not only would he keep the money in CDs, but he would keep it in, and he named the bank about halfway between here and St. Louis where those CDs have to stay. Now, what's he going to do when that bank sells and takes on a different name? I don't know. But the point is, we've got all kinds of silliness going on. And in that particular case, once you've inherited the money and whoever gave it to you is dead and gone, friend, they're dead and gone. It's your money. You can do with it what you want. And it's appropriate for you to make some changes because the previous generation might not have had the best ideas. I see people who are emotionally wrapped up in being afraid of retirement. They just are fearful about pulling the trigger, which is one of the reasons that we created the 6 steps to retirement confidence. And so that's one of the things that we help them think about and demonstrate for them. You've got enough money that you can retire and stay retired and still die with more than you have today. It'll be okay to go ahead and pull the trigger. This week, I had a client in that when we reviewed his account and where his money was sitting, he's got somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And all of it is sitting in accounts where it's earning less than the rate of inflation. So he's been a really good saver, but he's letting his money be lazy while he keeps working. And I don't know about you, but I think that's a dumb idea. Make your money work as hard as you worked to earn your money. So emotions get involved in all this stuff, and you have to just be able to set the emotions aside and think clearly and logically. And if you can't do that, well, then say to me or whoever you work with, hey, I'm having trouble doing that, and we'll help you to think more clearly and logically and figure out what steps you can take that might relieve you of some of the emotional stress associated with that.
Yeah. Barry, what are some of the things we can do to get our money moving in the right direction? What do you suggest on that for retirement?
Well, first we got to identify what is the direction we want our money to move.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah, and it may be that I want to retire next year, or it may be I want to retire in 10 years. Those are two totally different conversations. Now, I think whenever you're going to retire, one of the directions you want your money to go is toward tax-free income. So you're going to want to be sure that your accounts are set up to pay you income tax-free. I can't harp on this hard enough because I promise you a day is coming when you're going to be sad that you didn't put yourself in a tax-free position because tax rates are going to continue to go higher and higher and higher and higher. And then the other thing I would say is if you want to send your money in the right direction, get it moving where it should, you need to identify the rate of return that you need. Well, how do you do that? It's a big math question. And actually, we can help you with that. One of the things that we do for our clients is we demonstrate whether or not they saved enough, and if they haven't, what rate of return they need to achieve on their existing money in order for it to fill in that gap. And sometimes it'll come back and say, you need to earn 18% per year. Well, that's not going to happen, at least not on a consistent basis. So at least it gives us a framework to work from. It'll say you need to earn 18% a year, or you need to deposit another $465,000 in your accounts. Well, that's not going to happen either. I don't have that money. So now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to talk about working a little longer. We're going to talk about living a little less expensively in retirement. We're going to talk about alternate forms of income from maybe a little part-time work in retirement, things of that nature. You need, though, to point your investments toward achieving the rate of return that you need in retirement, not more and not less.
Yeah. Creating income, that's a huge focus right now if you're ready to retire. And how do we take what we've saved and turn that into retirement income, Barry?
Well, you probably need to be working with a retirement income planner. And that's different from someone who may have helped you all these years to be accumulating your money for retirement. There are accumulating advisors, investment manager types, and those are totally different than retirement income planners. I'm reminded of a story about climbing Mount Everest. You know, the first guy to climb to the top of Everest was who, Ralph?
Well, it was from the history book, and he's a Sir Edmund Hillary.
Sir Edmund Hillary. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, here's something interesting about Edmund Hillary. He was accompanied up Mount Everest by a Sherpa whose name was Tenzing Norgay. And this is where the story really gets interesting. There are all these pictures of Hillary and Norgay standing there, and we've just climbed the summit of Mount Everest. But what people don't know is there was a Brit, a guy from England named George Mallory, who had attempted to climb Mount Everest before them. And Mallory, they believe, may have reached the summit before. And the reason they believe that is when they found his body, Mallory had on the crampons, the tools that they climb with. Apparently, there's a different tool you use to go up than the one you go down. He had on the tool you use to go down, and he had taken a picture with him, a photograph that he said he was going to leave on the top of Mount Everest. It was a photograph of his family. And when they found him, he did not have that photograph on his body, indicating he'd probably been to the top of the mountain. But the point is, he didn't know how to get back down the mountain. Retirement planning is like that, Ralph. You spend all these years climbing. You've got all this money stored up. Now you've reached the apex of the mountain, the top of the hill, and it's time to start coming down the other side in what we call decumulation or retirement spending. And the reason Hillary made it to the bottom and had his picture taken, we believe, is because he had a Sherpa with him named Tenzing Norgay. And so I will tell you this, that your Sherpa who helps you with your retirement income plan should be able to demonstrate to you what your exact, precise, to the dollar annual income is going to be for every year between today and age 100. That's what a retirement income plan does for you.
There you go. Well, the Wealth Care Corporation is your personal retirement planning firm to help you get to the summit, headquartered right here in the Ozarks. And Barry, how do we find that right financial advisor to help in managing our money and, pointing it in the right direction, heading for the top? What's the best way to find the best person?
Well, Ralph, I think you already have.
Which I vote for Barry Watts.
I mean, how do you expect me to answer that question? This is what we do for a living. You can go to wattswealth.com and download the Retirement Confidence Kit. And it will give you a wealth of information about that that'll help you understand who we are. And perhaps you've listened to the show enough that you already know who we are, in which case you just want to pick up the phone and call us by dialing 417-200-3500. 417-200-3500 is the phone number. And when they answer, you just tell them, been listening to Barry on the radio and I want an appointment. And they'll schedule a time for us to talk. Now, here are some things that you want to think about if you are interviewing people to help you with retirement. You ought to look for people who are holistic planners instead of those who do just one part. Most people just manage investments. And it could be that you're working with someone right now who just manages investments and is not being holistic. Now, when I say holistic, what does that involve? Well, it involves income planning to age 100. It involves taxes. What did your investment person say the last time for you help? Ask them for some help on taxes. It involves principal protection. Interesting question. Is your investment person showing you how to protect your principal? And people say, well, yeah, he is. Okay, well, what's he doing? Well, I don't know, but they do some stuff. No. There ought to be a very specific protocol for how you protect your capital so that it doesn't disappear in down markets. They ought to talk to you about healthcare, both Medicare and long-term care, most importantly. And then they ought to talk with you about estate planning and help you to understand what you need and help you to get set up with what you need and pointed in the right direction there. So here's my question. If you're working with somebody who is an investment management kind of person, but they're not dealing with income and taxes and healthcare, long-term care, estate planning, principal protection, you're paying for all 5 parts, but you're only getting one part. Why are you paying a fee that covers normally all 5 parts the way we do it here, but you're only getting one part? I would suggest that you look for somebody, and if you can't find them, come see us at the Wealth Care Corporation. It's what we do, who addresses all 5 of those parts for the same money that you're paying now just to get one part.
Very good. Very good. Well said, Barry. We've got more to talk about as we reach the conclusion of our show. Boy, what another informative hour. And there's more on the way. You're listening to Watts on Wealth. This is Ralph Hipp along with Barry Watts, and we'll return.
We all want the freedom to do the things that make us happy, especially in retirement. To get help planning for a future in retirement, give Barry a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. More Watts on Wealth coming up.
According to the U.S. debt clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $31 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Barry Watts and the team at Wealth Care know what to look for. Barry can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 417-200-3500 to set up a tax strategy session with Barry Watts and the Wealth Care team. That's 417-200-3500. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 417-200-3500.
Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You're listening to Watts on Wealth with Barry Watts of Wealth Care. If you have questions about what you heard on the show today, you can give Barry and his team a call at 417-200-3500.
Retirement designer for the Wealth Care Corporation of Springfield. This is Ralph Hipp, and the show is Watts on Wealth. Barry, we're talking about, you mentioned before the break, why are you paying for all 5 parts and only getting one from your advisor? What are some of the other signs you see that somebody needs a financial pro to work with?
Well, those 5 parts, again, Ralph, were income planning to 100, tax planning, principal protection, long-term care planning, and estate planning. Your financial advisor ought to be speaking into all 5 of those areas for you. And the question that I would encourage you to ask yourself as you think about this to figure it out is, first of all, do you have a retirement income plan? Or do you just have an account with some money in it? Do you have a plan for how you're going to spend that money down over the coming years? Another thing to ask yourself is this. Remember back in 2022 when the stock market was down about 20%? Did your investments fully participate? Did you lose money in 2022, or were you protected from much of that market loss? Another question is, do you have a long-term care strategy in place? We run into people all the time who don't have that, and their advisors have told them it's just too costly. You just can't do it. Well, you can do it if you know how to structure things to make it happen. And then another thing I would encourage you to consider is, does your investment person speak tax? Are they talking about your tax situation and giving you strategies and solutions? Here at the Wealth Care Corporation, we've got in-office CPAs and tax strategists, and those are different people. The CPAs are focused on making sure that the accounting is right, making sure the tax filing is right. The tax strategists are focused on understanding and knowing what the opportunities are out there in the marketplace, the things that you can do to take advantage of the tax code as it is presently written. So just go through that set of questions and kind of ask yourself, am I getting the full service that I should be, or do I need to perhaps find some place that provides a more robust suite of services as a retiree?
Yeah. And the goals have to be real, Barry. Otherwise, we'll just set ourselves up to fail financially. How do you help people around the Ozarks be real in creating those retirement goals and exactly where they want to go?
Well, it's funny you ask that. I referenced earlier the guy I'd had in the office this week who's making $200,000, but it's going to be $20 million in 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, I'm for him. God bless him. I want him to make as much as he can. But, $20,000 or $200,000 to $20 million, that's a pretty big step. There aren't very many people who accomplish that. And so, in that particular case, I just kind of nodded my head and went along and didn't engage very deeply because I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't want to spend a lot of time planning for something that never comes to be.
Would you call him over-realistic?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know if we should use the word realistic at all there. But I would say this, most people are under-realistic. That is, they can do more and have a bigger retirement than they know. See, this guy just took me at my word. He said, you said I can have bigger. I'm going to 20 million. Well, probably not. So what we try to do is we try to help people just see that in many cases, they can have a bigger retirement than they know. We want to show them that more is possible. You can have more income. You can give more to charity. You can leave more for your heirs. You can support your family more now. You can live a more robust life. We just make sure they know and understand what they can do, and then we let them choose what they want to do because ultimately it's your money and you get to do whatever with it that you want to.
That's right. Hey, if you're just tuning us in, if you've just found us on the radio, good for you. This is Watts on Wealth on the new radio home of our expert retirement planner, J. Barry Watts of the Wealth Care Corporation. Retirement, we've always said, like anything else, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You've got to pace yourself and train for it so you don't wear yourself out before you get to the finish line. The challenge with a marathon of retirement is you don't know where that finish line is. We're generally living longer than any generation before us, no telling how long we may live. We love to bring up the name of our former Springfield radio host and Drury College grad, Price is Right host, Bob Barker. Bob living to be nearly 100. It is possible. Are your clients concerned about running out of money before they run out of life, Barry, in this marathon? And how do you help ensure that their money does continue to work for them through their retirement years?
Well, Ralph, I think that's one of the number one concerns is, am I going to have enough money to get me there, or do I need to work a few years longer?
Yeah.
We're living longer than any generation before us, and there's no telling how long we may actually live. And that's something we've got to focus on. But really, when you ask this question, it's kind of like asking a heart surgeon, how can you work on a heart while it keeps beating? Well, the answer is because I'm a heart surgeon. That's what they do. In the same way, working on a retirement while you're taking income out of it is what we do. We know how to do that because we've done it hundreds and hundreds of times before. So what I would say is that you just need to be working with a really skilled retirement planner. You need to, the level that you desire, understand the process they're using and the thoughts that they are using to get you there. You need to ask pointed questions about, am I still on pace to have income all the way to age 100 and get straight answers from them. But ultimately, you need to let them do what they know how to do because they're the ones who've done it hundreds of times before. Ralph, do you remember the first time you ever rode a bicycle? How'd you do?
Not too well. I'm trying to think, Barry, did I have the training wheels on? I'm pretty sure I did. But I remember my biggest memory, because I got hurt and went right on the street. I was riding on that bar between the handlebars and the seat, riding on the bar with my Uncle Mark. And Mark hit something, and we did a 180, went right over. So that riding the bike, I remember of it suddenly stopped and flipped over, which I would say, we don't want to have that happen financially, by the way. But I remember that bike, but I think we had training wheels. But we just don't do well when we're not comfortable with it.
Well, and when we're doing it for the first time, I remember learning to ride a bike. I grew up on the Rayleigh Creek at the mouth of James River, just south of Galena on Highway 13. The first little house there on the left in the valley, they took our beautiful farm and turned it into a strip mine. Because the most value of it was in the gravel and in the soil. And they took all that soil and hauled it to Branson, put it on a subdivision. So I get it. I understand. But some of the folks who are listening will know where I grew up. And I remember learning to ride the bike. There was a little bump up to the edge of the highway, and Mom and Dad would take me up there by the little bump on the highway, and they would put the back wheels of the bike up there on the highway, and then they would give me a push down through the yard. And the funny thing was, no matter where we were in the yard, I would always steer toward the maple tree in the middle of the yard. And they couldn't figure out, why do I always hit the maple tree? And I don't know why that was either. But then it became a thing. Don't hit the maple tree. Don't hit the maple tree. And of course, what I did is hit the maple tree every time. There's still, I'm sure, scars on that tree today. It is still there from where I hit it. The point is, if you haven't done something before, you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it well. Yeah. So how many times have you retired before? Well, it's the first time. Yeah. First time. Maybe you need to work with somebody who's done it before, who knows how to coach you to do it as effectively as possible.
You and me both, Barry, those early writing days, we both hit something.
Absolutely.
We hit something that left a scar, yeah. Beatle John Lennon wrote these lyrics, and this is interesting. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. And how do we plan for those additional challenges that come along with living a long time?
Well, you do it one challenge at a time. There's not any other way. But what you've got to do first, Ralph, is isolate those challenges. What are the challenges that you can face in the future? Well, the first one is loss of income. Loss of income,
sure.
or diminution of income, meaning my income went down because I began to run out of money. So that's a boogeyman. One of the things that can face you is health, and a health crisis coming upon you. My dad had a stroke on the Friday after Christmas. And as it's turned out, apparently it was kind of the best kind of stroke you can have. They gave him a release date from the hospital just yesterday, actually from the rehab hospital. So he's going to be okay. But, we've turned a corner in the family, and they actually said he'll go home, and they told him within 2 months, you'll be back to your normal life doing everything that you did before. So that's why I said the best kind of stroke you can have. But we're going to have health events. And someday one of those health events is coming that's not, you're not going to return to your normal life. It's going to be a change that may even require you to downsize your life. All along throughout retirement, there are issues of tax increases impacting Social Security and impacting what you pay for Medicare. All of these are boogeymen: the health boogeyman, the tax boogeyman, the Medicare boogeyman, the income boogeyman. Ralph, our job is to neutralize every boogeyman, one boogeyman at a time. So we come up with the challenge, boom, we shoot it. Next challenge, bang, we shoot it. We just keep shooting and killing those challenges until there are no boogeyman challenges left. And we've dealt with the problems to the greatest extent that we possibly can. And in most cases, we are able to help people do that in a way that gives them a great sense of retirement confidence.
Great. Retirement confidence, what it's all about, and protecting your principles, some of the basic concepts to talk with Barry about. Call Barry anytime this week and leave a message, or maybe you'll just get him. Do you ever just actually pick up the phone the first time, Barry, and there they are? Or
I rarely pick up the phone. The staff are trained to pick up the phone on the first time, but anytime I pick up the phone, I regret it because it's some question that I can't answer. And they're like, oh, Barry, you can help me. It's like, no, I'm probably the least helpful person here on stuff that most clients are calling in wanting. I can barely schedule an appointment. So, no, you don't want to talk to me first. You want to talk to me after they've taken care of everything and just put you in the room with me.
That's right. So to get that started this coming week, it's 417-200-3500, and closing our show with those taxes and challenges popping up throughout life. It does help to have rainy day funds, right, Barry, for challenges. And as we wrap up our show for this week, how much do you suggest your clients around Springfield save for an emergency fund in retirement?
Real simple, Ralph. 6 months worth of living expenses.
6 months.
In order to know how much that is, you've got to know what your retirement income number is, or we call it your sitting on the porch number. So if your sitting on the porch number is $5,000 a month, for 12 months, that's $60,000. If you need 6 months worth of living expenses, 5 sixes is $30,000 that you need in the bank. And so we set that $30,000 aside and leave it in your bank account for the emergencies that may come your way.
All right. So do that. Make a note to call Barry Watts and the staff at Watts on Wealth and the Wealth Care Corporation. That is it for our show for this week, and hope you'll make a note to join us again right here on this same station next time for Watts on Wealth. For Barry Watts and everybody at the Wealth Care Corporation, I'm Ralph Hipp. Have a terrific week.
Thank you for stopping by Watts on Wealth. If you would like Barry and his team to help you make a plan to get to and through retirement, or would simply like a second opinion on your current plan, give us a call today at 417-200-3500. That's 417-200-3500. And join us again next week for Watts on Wealth.
WealthCare Corporation provides tax strategy, tax compliance, accounting, and insurance services through its affiliate American Tax Strategies, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided by WealthCare Asset Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance never guarantees future results. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as the basis for personal financial decisions without first consulting a qualified advisor. The information and opinions you've heard are believed reliable but cannot be guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness.